this is not the end of the story, because I think it's actually good that Raijin was released this way. As I mentioned in my video, the top 5 reasons why OP God releases are good for Smite. Now, there's a huge caveat I'll talk about at the end, which is that they don't stay overpowered. A lot of people misread my title and started saying that I was basically suggesting OP gods were good for the balance of the game. I absolutely agree that overpowered gods are not good for Smite. I'm a competitive player in Smite. I'm a competitive player in my life in terms of soccer and other sports. I do not want somebody to have an unfair advantage the entire time. But what I'm speaking about is really more about the value that it is to bring a character into a lineup where they're basically being seen for the first time with an overtuned kit, so that people play them, they enjoy them, and they get a little bit more press in those first 2 weeks, being the star of their own release, so to speak. If you have a god that gets out in their first game and all of a sudden is really boring or just really underpowered, and you see people kind of on the first day playing them, but then on the second and third day you don't see too much of them, I think that's a sign that it wasn't a very good release. And for me, that's kind of an issue, because you have so much time and effort being spent into putting these gods together. You have 12 people working on a single god release, every single god release, and that's a lot of time and money and energy, and they needed to pay off. Now, there's a few things I want to mention about what Smite and Hi-Res Studios is really expecting from these releases, and why it may be a different perspective for you, because they're looking at it from a business, and you're looking at it from a pretty much just a player, usually and most likely a casual player, not a professional player. And I'm not a professional player either. I just am trying to put myself in the shoes of a pro and basically understand what this might mean to them, the casual scene, and to Hi-Res as a business. So let's get into it, shall we? Raijin was released very, very OP. As you guys can see, he's not, I think, too strong. Like, it's not outrageous, but I just think it's very clear that he needs to be tuned down. And my reasoning for this being great is that you have seen a lot of Raijins. Personally, myself, I've played 3v3 Joust quite a lot this week, more so than ever. And I found that almost every single joust, with the exception of this one where I am actually Raijin, I have played against a Raijin. And in all of my other game modes, including Clash and Arena this week, I have faced off against a Raijin, or there has been a Raijin in almost every single game. And that to me is a great thing. That means that Smite has had a successful release with this god, where people are continuing to play him even though he was released about a week ago, and they are starting to really enjoy this god. Now, he is going to get nerfed into balance, hopefully within 2 weeks, but I think it's a good thing that he's already establishing a fan base of people that like Raijin. That means in the future, when Smite starts to make Raijin skins, or they start to reward players who have put a lot of energy and time into Raijin with cool things, they're going to be able to make a lot more money from this god, versus a god who comes out and doesn't really establish a fan base or players that love his style, and then all of a sudden, you know, kind of aren't able to maximize on the effort that they put in. Remember, Smite is a free-to-play game, guys, so that means that they need to make money not only on people purchasing these gods, but on people who are essentially going to be purchasing skins for these gods, voice packs for these gods, and other things that come out for these gods in the future. That's pretty much what they're banking on. A lot of people don't look at that aspect of it, but Smite is basically saying, if I build a fan base for Raijin right now, he's going to be somebody that can make me money, although people aren't going to be paying for him forever. They could be paying for skins for him forever. As you know, a lot of people are very dedicated Thor fans, and that's one of the reasons Thor, in my opinion, got the tier 5 skin this year, because Smite wanted to make money. I really believe that Thor was not the god that should have gotten it, in terms of, okay, why would you give it to an Assassin 2 years in a row? I think a lot of people agree that giving it to Thanatos and then giving it to Thor was a little bit one-sided, but the fact is, Thor is just their most popular god. He was played the most, and they realized, wait a second, the most amount of people are going to be buying this Thor skin. It's not going to be the same if we make this tier 5 skin for Vamana, because he doesn't have as many fans. And there's several reasons why Thor is popular. One, because he's just popular in real life. People like playing Thor, especially if you're a 13-year-old kid. You know gods, you know Thor, he's one of the gods you know, you're going to play him. A lot of people are very young in this game. But not only that, It's the fact that Thor was been a very good god, been a very relevant god throughout the entire SPL. He's got fans everywhere, and he's seen all the time in professional play. If you see a pro Smite game, there's a chance you are probably seeing Thor. So at any level that you're being exposed to Smite, whether it's the highest level or whether it's just a casual gameplay, there's a very good chance you're going to see Thor in that match. And it's just, he's really on the mind, and he basically gained a very good fan base from the beginning. Now, Raijin, I think, is doing well with that, and I think that is one of the issues that a lot of people don't understand, is Smite is making these gods, I think, a little bit more powerful to start because they need to develop a fan base for them. Now, the whole thing about this is, what happens now? What happens after this god gets released OP? What are the results of that? Well, what I've seen so far is that not only have a lot of people been playing him all week, I've really seen Raijin in pretty much almost all of my games this week. I don't know if that's been the same for you guys, but I've definitely experienced that. So he's getting played a lot, and people, obviously, when you play a god, you're getting more experience, you're learning how to play better with that god, and you're just getting more tricks and tips in order to basically put him into a god, a pool where you know how to perform with this god a little bit better because you've played his kit quite a lot. I know somebody who's already a diamond Raijin. I cannot believe that already, but someone on my channel is already a diamond Raijin, which is showcasing how effective this release has kind of been in terms of activating people to playing this god. Now, here's the thing. I've also seen professional players start playing this god and really proclaiming a lot of great things. I know Weekend, one of the players who is on Team Envy, I believe, a very popular Smite player and a very popular professional, has actually said that this is one of his most fun gods he's played in his video title. Now, I'm not sure if he's lying, but the image that puts out is that Raijin is a god people should be playing. The pros are signing off on this god, and I would expect to see Raijin in the next professional setting he is available to be played in, regardless of these next 2 months, this next nerf coming in within 2 weeks, unless, here's the big caveat, unless he is nerfed out of his mind. Now, here is where the problem with an OP release kind of starts. If you have a god that gets released OP and you develop this fan base of people who like them, you obviously are dealing with people who do not want to play against a god who's totally overpowered for too long. And that's the majority of the community, myself included. If Raijin stayed this way forever, I would be a little pissed off. But the thing is, Raijin should be nerfed down into balance in about 2 weeks, or about a week from now, once he gets a little downgrade in his numbers, most likely. And that should make people a little bit easier, and I think you will be able to see Raijin coming more into an acceptable place. He won't just be outrageous. However, if you nerf a god too much after the first go, and you actually do something like you did to Ratatoskr, where Ratatoskr was so strong, but then all of a sudden he became so weak, and basically was just in the meta of a CC meta, had no ability to lock people down, and had no, it took away so much of his mobility, 60% of his mobility. He could dash probably 6 times, now he can dash only 1-2 times. You took away all of his strengths, and there was no reason to pick him. Ratatoskr didn't just get nerfed and basically become a bad god. One of the reasons was the meta became a very, very CC heavy meta, and he has no way of locking other characters down. When you look at a Kali or a Serket, or even even a Bakasura at this point, they have ways to cripple, stun, or mesmerize, and basically get that character staying enough near them so they can finish them off and get that damage. Ratatoskr, although he has a ton of damage, he's got no way to really affect someone, and especially with the nerf to Frostbound Hammer at this point, which is one of his key items in his build that was viable, he's got nowhere to go. He is not going to get played very much in this meta, and that, again, is something that I picked up a lot from Weekend's perspective. When he did his tier list, he was mentioning how his feelings were on Ratatoskr, and, you know, he's basically just saying that because he has no lockdown, because he has no ability to go ahead and provide the same things that some of the other assassins you could easily pick do, you would never pick him over some of the other options, and that's kind of the problem. If you nerf a god who's OP down to where they are no longer providing anything unique or anything valuable to a team composition, then you basically can have a very big problem, and that is one of the things that we've seen happen to Ratatoskr, and it's some other things that we've seen happen to some of the other gods in the past. Ratatoskr is the biggest example for me, though, and that's what I think we should look at in this video. So, given that, I believe he will get nerfed down, but hopefully not nerfed down into oblivion, so that I think he will be seen in the professional scene. That's my opinion. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I'd love to hear your opinions. Do you think Raijin will be seen in the professional scene his first opportunity? I believe that he will. I think people are practicing this god. I think people are aware of this god, and I think he's going to make an impact. I'm not sure what it will be, but right now I think it's stupid and it's irresponsible as a pro, in my opinion, to not know how to play this god. I think you have to prepare for this god to be played by other people, and I think you need to prepare possibly yourself if you're a mid, solo laner, or whatever role you choose to pick him up in. You need to prepare, your Raijin, just in case he's available. Now, we've talked about what's been happening. People have been playing him. The pros have been seemingly signing off on the fact that he's a good god, and casuals have been, you've been seeing Raijin in every single game. What's Smite's next move? Now, we know the nerf is coming up, right? We know that's happening, but we're hoping that it's not that overwhelming nerf. We're hoping that it's not that nerf that sends him into oblivion. So let's say it sends him into a reasonable aspect. What's the next step? Okay, the next step for me, and the next step I think for Smite, is that you get a god that is relevant, that has a fan base, and that had a successful release. You've spent your time well, and things are all good. If you can somehow nerf him into balance to where people don't complain about him, he doesn't feel like he's changing the game when he gets played, and he doesn't feel like, I can't compete against this god, then you are going to basically have a successful release. You have a fan base. You've got people who've already played him and signed off on him who love this god, and you're going to have that fan base take care with him. Just don't disrupt it. Don't mess this up. That is why I think in these first 2 weeks it is okay to release a god overpowered. And again, my biggest argument was this: you don't see a god getting released and being immediately balanced. Even Chiron, who I think was one of the most balanced gods released lately, had a little bit too high of damage numbers. His kit, relatively nothing outrageously strong about it, even though it was all just relatively very strong. It just wasn't outrageously strong in any way that made someone say, oh, that's another soul. And I think the fact is that with Chiron getting that slight downgrade, it still kept him viable. He still established his fan base. He had a great, simple kit for a lot of newer players, and I think then they were able to keep that god in balance, allow him to be strong but not too strong, and basically allow him to, have a great showing at the Smite World Championships and not be a god that people picked and just won the game with. The problem, the things they do that make them that makes Smite lose credibility, and I think that hurts them in terms of the community. Although I understand this from a business perspective, and keeping gods like Bellona and Thor very strong because they're the face of your game. If you nerf them too low and they stop becoming relevant gods, you can't have a god like Bellona, who's the face of your latest promo video, basically be a god that no one plays. That would be ridiculous. You have to basically give them a little bit of special care because they have huge fan bases. They've been played a lot. People have put a lot of energy into them, and when the skins come out, you're going to get a lot more value for people buying skins with those fan bases if that god's being played a lot versus if that god is not relevant. I think it's really a monetary issue that Hi-Rez is doing this. But how do you keep this in the good favor of your community and do a good thing for the game? You release Raijin like you have, and then you nerf him down just a little bit. You don't take him down too much. You keep the fan base happy. You help the people who feel like he's a little bit too powerful, which is even me, happy as well. And you then go ahead with a fan base that you've acquired. You go ahead with people who are accepting him as he is, and you move on to your next release. And pretty soon people will stop complaining that Raijin is OP. Well, actually, no one will ever stop complaining gods are OP. People still complaining about many gods. That will always happen. But I think you move forward with doing the best you can. You get your money's worth for the time and energy you've put in with your